Logos 9 was released last October, and it's been, well, just a little over 6 months since it was released. And there's a number of new features that were in Logos 9 that I thought it might be kind of good to go back to take a look at and to say, well, how significant was this upgrade? And is it worth your while if you've held off this long? What are the features that I'm using on a day-by-day basis, and do they make this a worthwhile upgrade? So I'm going to answer those questions, and we're going to talk about Logos 9 today, and I'm going to share some of the most effective things that I've found using this new version. So let's get into it. So when Logos 9 first came out last October, I published a review video of it, and you can find a copy of that review video up here if you're interested in looking at that. But I thought it might be kind of good to go back, because there's a number of features that were released then, as I was thinking about it just the other day, that I would like to sort of look at and go, well, was this a good feature or not? And there's a number of things in Logos 9 which I'm not really using very much. I'm going to talk about those, but there's a number of features which I think are kind of killer features which make the upgrade worthwhile, even if it's just a little wee change. And some of these are just tiny little tweaks. It's amazing how just a small tweak in software can make just such a huge difference to the kinds of, productivity that you can gain from a piece of software. Now, if you're not using Logos Bible software every day, it may not be quite so effective, but if you're a pastor, or if you're doing Bible studies, or even just spending time in your own Bible reading time in Logos Bible software, well, this video, I hope, at least will be helpful, and hopefully you'll relate to some of these things as well. I'm going to go over to my computer, and we're going to log on to that together, and we'll talk about what we see there. So let's get into it. Okay, so here we are in front of the computer, and what I want to do is I want to just go through a couple of things in Logos Bible software with you here. So I've got here a blank canvas, and I really want to just start with a blank canvas just to sort of talk through a little bit of what you get when you first log onto Logos, and the kind of things that how it's going to be set up. So one of the things about the new version of Logos 9, is there are some interface tweaks. One of those, the ability to put these books up here has been here for a long time. To do that, you just click on the library button here and just open any book. Let me just go through here and open, let's say, the Grace Theological Journal, Volume 5. And once it's open, then you can see here, this is just the way it appears. You can actually put your mouse over the cover of the book and then drag it, and you can put that book then wherever you want it to be. And you can see now I've added that there. I don't want that there, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. But you can put up here whatever books you want. And I've got a number of books here, either that I use a lot or books that I'm referring to for projects at the moment, or whatever it is I'm working on. You'll also see here, and this is one of the new features with Logos 9, is these drop-down menus. This is something that was added in Logos 9. And honestly, of all the features in Logos 9, this is probably one of those ones that I think is a huge bonus. It's like where has this been since Logos 4 was introduced? This is a fantastic feature. And to take advantage of this, again, all you do is you right-click on any of the books you want, and then you can just type in here the name of the folder you want to put it into. So let's just say I want to create one called Texts. I can click enter, and now I have a folder called Texts in that particular resource, which is the Society of Biblical Literature, their Greek New Testament, that's now in that folder. And I can add other ones. Let's say I want to do the same here with my New American Standard. Let's put that into Texts as well. And now you can see that's in there as well. So this is really easy. And if you wanted to, you can actually change the name of it. So SBL, Greek, New Testament, that's easy to do. And you can see it's instantly updated. Same with the New American Standard, NASB 1995. And again, this is updated. So it's nice and easy to use. So I use this for a number of things. I have some just random Greek things that I use. I have some grammars that I go to quite a lot. I have a little grammar search. So one of my search tools I put in here as well. So I can just click on that. And then very easily I can do a search. For instance, relative pronoun within 5 words of preposition. So whenever you find a preposition that's got within 5 words of a relative pronoun in one of the grammars referred to, then it will find that for me really easily. And you can see there's a number of occurrences where that comes up. So you can do things like that pretty easily, and I find this really helpful. Probably this is one of the features that I was waiting for the longest when when Logos 9 came out and I heard about this feature. This is really one of the features that I was looking forward to the most. So this is a big deal for me because it allows me to have a whole bunch of resources up there to compartmentalize them if I want to and make them really easy to find as well. So There is some things that I'd like to see change with this though. For instance, I've got in here, in my Greek one, I've got the UBS 5, which now I want to put under texts. And so to do that, I actually need to right click on this and I need to change the folder that it's in, right? Why can't I take that, drag it, you can see it doesn't drag, it just opens when you click it. But I want to be able to drag that, say, into another folder. That's the kind of thing that I'd like to see. As it is, I have to go in here, go to folder, change the name of it to texts, and if I spell it wrong, text with 2 S's, say, now I've got a new folder, right? So this is one of those things I think is still a little bit awkward, and I'd like to see this, fine-tuned and finessed a little bit. But for what it is, I'm glad it's there, and I'm very thankful to Logos for creating this new feature. In terms of other things, in terms of the interface, one of the other big changes in the interface was this one over here, and that is with the things like the application settings, the program scaling, and that sort of thing. Having this here, I think, is really helpful, particularly when it comes to the theme. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. Before I do, though, let me go back to text, and I'm going to grab my New American Standard out. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to Numbers chapter 11. And in Numbers 11, I came across this morning. There was this discussion here about how that the people of Israel were complaining and they wanted meat. And so the Lord provides them with quail. And you can see down here that they went forth a wind and the Lord brought quail from the sea. And you can see here it's got this little dotted blue underline. This is a reference to the fact book, which is brand new in Logos 9. Now, in terms of user interfaces, this is one of those things that I really don't use. Although I have people inside Master New Testament Greek who love this, particularly given, for instance, you can come up to the search box at the top here and type in quail, excuse my spelling, and it will pop up. And one of the options that will be there is the fact book, to open the fact book to quail. And so you can click on that and it will then open the fact book and away you go. But I don't really use this very much. And I actually, when it comes to the Greek, the texts themselves, I turn it off pretty much everywhere. Let me just open the New American, this Greek text here, the Tyndale House Greek New Testament. And you can see here I don't have it turned on. Again, if you turn it on, you can have it so that it you'll mouse over, you'll have that little pop-up come up, and so it will give you more details about whoever it is that it's referring to. And some people might like that, but I really don't. I prefer, if I could turn off the pop-ups, the mouse over pop-ups, that would be great, but I can't do that. I'm stuck with it. And I often find too that I'm accidentally clicking things and then I'm opening all these windows inadvertently, and I find that a little frustrating. So I actually just turn this off and leave it off. You can do it for different things, so you can be more specific. But again, it's either one of those things where it's kind of either on or off in some ways. Now, if you're kind of a curious type and you're sort of still learning the ropes on some of these things, I think this is a really, really helpful feature. But if you're a little further down the track and maybe you've been to Bible college, seminary, you've got a few years of education, you've read a lot, and you're pretty well versed with the redemptive structure of the storyline of Scripture and a lot of the history and that sort of thing, then this can become, I think it can just get in the way a little bit. So it's easy to turn it off, so it's not a big deal. But this is one of those features with Logos 9 that I really just don't use very often. So that's the fact book. Let me show you one other reason why I don't use that, and that comes back to the interface here. When we come up to these 3 dots here and we choose the application theme, I really like that we can put this into dark mode. Let me go ahead and do that. But the fact that you have to restart every time to put it into dark mode, this is one of those things that drives me a little bit crazy. I would like I want this to switch automatically, or I'll probably just leave it all the time, really, which is what I tend to do. I just leave it on one mode or the other. So let me restart Logos to bring that over. And what it would be nice to do, it's not just Logos that does this, it's also Accordance. Accordance does much the same thing. When it wants to switch between light and dark mode as a theme, it's going to ask you to restart Accordance as well. So again, this is one of those things that I would love to see. There are lots of good software applications out there available on Mac and presumably PC as well that don't require a restart. And I don't understand why Logos and Accordance for that matter as well can't, get this so that it just works. So this is one of those things I'd like to see done, and I honestly just avoid switching between these 2 modes. The other thing about this then, when you do get into back into the dark mode, Notice how I've still got the fact book on here, but when you go to the fact book and you've got this mouse over it, but you can't see the blue lines very easily. They're not very evident. They're much more obvious when you've got a white background than when you've got a dark background. And that really brings to the other thing about the dark mode is there's still, I think, just a few little interface tweaks that I think would be really helpful just to finish that off and make it a really nice experience. So I don't use dark mode much. I like dark mode. I would like to use it more. I'm just not quite there yet. So I normally take the fact book and turn it off for two reasons. One, it's not very helpful, gets in the way, and I click things and open windows when I don't want them to. And two, it's just hard to sort of see it in dark mode anyway to be able to distinguish which words you're going to be working with. A couple other little things that came out with Logos 9 charts. I don't use charts at all, mostly because I'm just not really when I'm looking at a word, I'm looking up a word, I'm looking at the usage of a word, I'm not interested in statistics. I'm looking at how was it used in certain contexts, and for that, I need to read it. A chart is kind of interesting from a statistical point of view, but doesn't help me actually read the text any better. So I don't use charts pretty much at all, and if you are one of those people who do like numbers and statistics, well, go at it. It's going to be a cool little feature, and it certainly will translate well into PowerPoint slides and things like that, but it just isn't one of those things that has a lot of usefulness for, well, at least for me anyway. Hey, if you're getting value out of this, could you do me a favor and hit the like button below? That tells the YouTube algorithm this is a helpful video. If you haven't already hit subscribe, go ahead, hit the subscribe button and the notify bell, and that way you can find out when new videos are released. Let me take you back into some of my favorite features. There is one other thing though that came out with Logos 9 that I do want to talk about, and that is the counseling guide. So if we go up to guides here and we see the counseling guide, the counseling guide was brand new with Logos 9, and it was one of those features that was regarded as being, really a new feature, and it needed work. When I did the original review, I said then it needed work, and I think it's had a little bit of work since then. It certainly seems to be populating a lot more information now, but there's still some real constraints with this, and this is something that I think still needs a lot of work. Here, let me give you an example of one. Let's take alcoholism. Now, alcoholism is a common word. Everybody in our Western society, and probably well beyond that, understands what alcoholism is. But this is a word that is not used in the scripture. We don't find it anywhere in the Bible. And if you're looking at alcohol in the Bible, you're going to be talking about beer, and really beer or strong drink, or wine. Those are really what it talks about. But then you do have the sin of drunkenness. Do not be drunk with wine, which leads to dissipation, Ephesians 5 verse 18. But you can't find drunkenness in this. So you can go look up alcoholism and it will tell you all about it. But if you go and look up drunkenness, it's just not there. In fact, drunk isn't even there. So there's a lot of terms that are found in scripture that are simply not clued in the counseling guide. Another one, let's just show you another one here. Fear. Now, fear is one that you do find a reasonable amount of material on it, but there are certain issues that biblical counselors will deal with regards to fear, and I think even Christian counselors need to deal with. And when I say biblical and Christian counselors, I'm making a distinction there between those who hold that the scriptures are sufficient for counseling and those who would look to secular means and methodologies to provide them with authoritative information about the human psyche and condition. Now, those are two kind of different camps. I'm more on the biblical counseling side. Not to say that there's no value in the other side, but the scriptures are sufficient from my point of view. But here, when you look at fear, right, what we're looking at here is a very emotionally distressing emotion that arises, doesn't tell you anything necessarily about the morality of it, when that emotion is good, when it is bad, things like that. You have nothing about things like the fear of man, but the scriptures do talk about the fear of man. So and there's books written on this as well. And again, if you go down the bottom here and look at the books and monographs that you reference here, you've got nothing at all here by biblical counselors, even 6 months down the track after the launch. So there's a lot of work, I think, left to do around the counseling guide. I don't think this is anywhere near where it needs to be. I appreciate the work that's gone into it, but there's so much more work left to do. Let me just make one qualification on that. If you're doing an integrationist kind of degree, this will probably be a really helpful starting point. But again, there's still not even enough resource. Look at the bottom here, dictionaries, 2 dictionaries. How many monographs have we got here? We've got 5 monographs, and they're pretty much all from the same publisher. So there's not a lot of variety here, and there really needs to be a lot more to be done, including things like journal articles. You've got the Journal of Biblical Counseling in here. why can't that be incorporated into this? And there are other journals as well. So there's a lot more work that could be done and needs to be done for this to be a useful guide. So, counseling guide, yeah, sort of not quite there yet. Got a lot of potential. I'm looking forward to it in the future, but it's not quite where it needs to be right now. So that brings me then to two things that I think, as I thought right at the very beginning when I did that first review, that I think are really, really helpful. Those two features are sermons, first of all. Let me go into sermons and talk about that, and then I'll talk about what I think, or what I've found to be really the killer feature in a lot of ways. So let me open one of these sermons here, and you'll see it pop up on the right-hand side here. And one of the things I really like about this, there's a number of things I really like about this. First of all, on the side here, you can see when it was preached, when you preached the sermon, and you can go through all the different times that you preached it, so you know where you preached it, when, and so on. You can also see down the left-hand side of the screen there that I've actually got all my PowerPoint slides. Now, I haven't used these, but I really like the fact that it's so easy to create these slides, to add new slides in as well. Like, for instance, let me just pretend that I want to include this here as a slide. I can do that just by clicking a button there, highlighting the text I want, click a button, and there's a slide. And if I want to get rid of it, I can just right-click on it, delete that, and it's going to delete that slide. So I love the fact that I can easily create my slides from within the material, the same place that I do my sermon preparation. So I really like this. I like this layout on the left here. You can see here I've got my whole sermon structure there. You can see exactly where I am in any given part of the sermon. I can flick between those easily, which I wouldn't use during preaching, but I do use a lot while I'm preparing. And then the other thing I like too, if we go back up here to this early part here, is this idea of having prompts. I think we could probably do with a few more options here. Like if you come up here, you've got prompt, illustration, block quote. It might be nice to have a couple of illustrations or a couple of quotes perhaps, just to sort of give you a couple of different styles. But the real feature I think that I would love to see added here, in fact there's probably a couple, but the main one is really the ability to add citations. There's no way to put hyperlinks in here other than just Bible verses. And as you can see, when you have a Bible verse and then you hit enter, it's going to add that filled out underneath it. And of course, I love the fact that you can actually choose the translation here. This is nice. But I would love to have the ability to have a note, a footnote, or a citation with a hyperlink to that book or resource inside Logos Bible software. Now, it may not be a big deal for the average Sunday sermon, but when you're doing a bit of research and then you're drawing that research into your sermons, that's the sort of thing that can be really helpful to speak and teach from as well. So I would really appreciate having that option inside Logos Bible software. The other thing I think would be really handy here is the ability to actually make small modifications, edits to some of these translations. For instance, formatting would be a great one. Because sometimes there's a particular word, particularly if you're working between Greek and English, there's a word in Greek that you might want to highlight in English, or in Hebrew that you might want to highlight in English, and you can't do that because this is a block that you can't modify. Now, it doesn't matter if you change translations and the formatting is gone, but it would be really nice to be able to modify the formatting inside this text and actually have it stick. I mean, it doesn't work, it just disables it. That would be something that I think would be really handy as well. So I really like this, and I use this a lot on my iPad. I'm always doing it. The only problem on the iPad I find is that when you go to preach, or at least when I come to preach on my iPad, I hit the mode to change it into preaching mode, and then inevitably I'm going to forget to use the timer at the top. It would be nice if that timer could be self-modified so that the number of words down the bottom and the amount of time perhaps could be set as a default. You can modify it, and then it would prompt you to say, do you want to start the countdown or start timing your sermon? That would be really helpful, I think, and would add a little bit extra to the sermon preaching mode on the iPad as well. Then one more feature that I wanted to show you that I'm using all the time, and that is the ability to create a reading plan. Let me just go into Docs, and you can see here I've got a reading plan which I've created just recently, and here it is here. So I've been working through this book, and one of the things I really like is the ability to create a reading plan for a book and then actually share that reading plan as well. So you can click on the share button from the little three dots up the top left or top right here, click on that, choose share, and then you'll see the little window comes up. You make the document public, and then once you've done that, you'll see there's a link. And you can just copy that link and you can share that to anybody anywhere, and then they can use the same reading plan, and that's a great way of just syncing people up on the same plan. Now, if they're not using Logos Bible software, obviously that's going to be a bit of a hindrance, but in Master New Testament Greek, there's a number of people who do, and so I've been sharing this a little bit inside the membership, the Master New Testament Greek community membership, where we have our reading academy, and we read a book once a month, and so I will often share a reading plan in there as part of that program as well. So I've been really liking this, and again, when you go onto the mobile device, the read mode is, I think it's good. I really like the concept, but it's a little bit buggy. For instance, you're supposed to be able to highlight, but then it breaks, it stops highlighting it sometimes, so then it doesn't work anymore, and so then you have to go into the regular book mode to be able to start highlighting again, and it would just be nice to have that fixed. But overall, I really like this. The ability to create a reading plan for any book you have is, in my mind, the best feature here. But I want to know from you, what is your favorite feature of Logos 9? Are you using Logos Bible software version 9? And if so, let me know in the comments what your favorite feature is. So I was just editing this video and I just realized that I actually have a special deal for you. So if you go to the link below, this link just here, and I'll put it in the description below as well, you can get an extra 15% off Logos Bible software when you buy a bundle. So this is a special deal only available till the middle of June 2021, about the 15th of June 2021 it will be available until. So if you're watching this then, go ahead, use that link and it will give you an extra 15% off any bundle until that period. And if you're interested in learning Biblical Greek and actually learning the ropes and how it works and being able to read it, then use this link just here to be able to download a free roadmap which I provide for anybody who's interested really to learn what it looks like to be able, go through the process of learning Greek. So go ahead and download that as well. Thanks so much again for watching. Thanks for watching this video, and keep taking small consecutive steps until mastery, because that's what makes mastery inevitable. And then you're going to get that clarity, the confidence, and the effectiveness in the Greek of the New Testament. So keep taking small steps, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.